Hey, my name's Clayton Olson, and this video is for you if you find yourself struggling in your relationship or connection with someone right now and find yourself at what I call a relationship breakpoint. After having worked with 1,000 individuals, many of which have been in a relationship breakpoint, I would define it as this. It's a crossroads where you have arrived at a place where whatever has been the current dynamic is no longer going to get you to the next level. The relationship is either going to end or there's going to be a breakthrough. And the two of you are going to evolve together through this time of crisis and into the next level of intimacy, connection, and presence. And it doesn't matter whether or not you are the one that feels you're about to lose your relationship or whether you are the one that is trying to decide whether you're going to stay or go. I know that this can be a really anxiety-producing event. And it can be very eclipsing in your life where this is all you're thinking about. Because when our relationship is suffering, typically our whole life starts to be clouded by that pain. So if this is you, I believe the insights that I share are going to support you immensely. Now in this video, I'm going to invite you into a paradigm, a way of thinking about where you're currently at with this relationship crisis, as well as seeing your partner through a lens that the minority of people actually adopt. The majority of people are in the first mindset that I'll talk about here in a moment. Oftentimes this mindset we inherit from culture, we inherit from our parents, we have not the best models growing up, and we end up in this mindset that actually ends up causing a lot of the dysfunction and pain and anxiety that you might be feeling right now. The challenge in this video is not to understand these concepts. That's going to be pretty straightforward. The challenge for you is going to be able to take what you learn from this video and begin to apply it and live from this place as a new orientation in your life. Realizing that there's going to be some times that you feel like you're failing. Maybe you find yourself in the mindset that's not useful. Other times you'll find yourself in this other mindset that I distinguish in this video. To keep coming back to that and realize it's going to take persistence and some practice. So the mindset that I'm talking about here is distinguished between these two different words. The finite mindset or the infinite mindset. I was really excited when I heard about this because a few years ago when I came across this way of thinking, I realized that the majority of the work that I do in my coaching practice is about helping people move from the finite lens of relating to life and relationship into the infinite lens of seeing themselves and seeing relationship, because there's a whole different set of actions that come from each, a whole different set of beliefs that come from each. That one allows relationships on one level to actually hit this breaking point and to not survive and to not really learn anything from the experience. And the other, the infinite mindset, is where you turn into a master visionary, a creator, an alchemist in your life, and you're able to use whatever is happening as the stepping stones and the catalyst for the evolution of yourself and your relationship. So finite versus infinite. There's many ways to define this, but I'm going to ask a couple questions now that people typically find themselves asking when they're in the finite lens and see if you can relate to this. So the finite mindset versus the infinite mindset in relationship. We'll start here. Simplest way to define this, there is a winner and a loser in the finite mindset. Someone who has the power and the other person that doesn't. One person gets what they want and the other person has to compromise in this paradigm. Finite thinking involves approaching situations with a fixed mindset, focusing on short-term goals, and seeking to win or achieve specific outcomes within defined boundaries. It's like a zero-sum game where there's a winner and there's a loser. And it's like playing a game where there's a clear set of rules and objectives with a clear endpoint. Now, when we put relationship through this lens, we realize that relationship is not a game of soccer. It's not a finite game to be played. Most of us play relationship from this place of seeing it through a finite lens. In contrast, infinite thinking involves adopting a growth mindset, focusing on long-term strategies and embracing the uncertainty and the change. It's like playing a game where the rules continually evolve and the goal is to keep the game going and adapting rather than trying to achieve final victory. And the majority of people that live in the finite way of relating, it's often unconscious, and we often learn this from our parents, we learn this from culture, we learn this from a lot of the relationship advice that exists on YouTube. So here's a couple ways you might know that you are living in a finite lens. If you're asking yourself these kind of questions, what are we right now? Or when is this person going to propose? Or when are they going to stop doing X behavior because they're ruining the relationship? Or maybe you're asking, do they want me or are they attracted to me? Is this even going anywhere? We're asking the question, who has the power? Do I have the power? Do they have the power? How do I get the power back? Or how do I get them to change? Or how do I save this relationship and stop them from leaving me? Now, if you can identify with any of those questions, they're very common. And if you find yourself in a finite mindset, know that you're not alone. This is a very normal way of operating in a relationship, but there's a far more empowering way to be in this. If you're here watching this video right now because you want to turn whatever challenge that you're experiencing in your relationship into an opportunity for growth and learning, then you're actually approaching this crisis point from an infinite mindset already. So congratulations. And if you're not doing that, I would invite you to begin to look at this as an opportunity, which we'll talk about in a moment. See, the finite player is very attached to the outcome of things happening in the relationship. That's primary of where they get their security. They need certain things to happen outside of them that they don't have control over, which ultimately creates a state of anxiety within them because they're not living life from the inside out, but rather from the outside in. When this thing happens, then I can feel this way. The piece that I want to just install right off the bat is imagine relationship as a road trip versus as a flight to your destination. A flight to your destination is the finite lens. It's just trying to get from A to B in your relationship. Where looking at relationship through the lens of a road trip is a way in which you realize that maybe the flat tire is part of the adventure. The wrong turn or the detour that you took that maybe led you to a place where you felt lost also led you to some beautiful place that was filled with adventure and exploration. That is the metaphor for living life through the infinite lens. That is living your relationship through the infinite lens. So I'm going to go into 3 pillars now to further distinguish the finite versus the infinite. The first one is the orientation of toward versus away. So moving toward something or trying to move away from something. Moving away from something is often the finite way of approaching relationship. I'm trying to avoid bad things from happening. And oftentimes, if I'm in that finite mindset, I'm in a relationship breakpoint and I see it as a crisis. It is something that I'm trying to move through quickly. There's a fire happening in the relationship and I need water to put it out. And so there's a urgency, there's a franticness, there is a I am not okay until this thing gets resolved. It's a way of being in the relationship. Where the finite thinker sees the relationship breakpoint as an opportunity. They're able to be with the uncertainty. They can see that the breakpoint is actually a chance to reevaluate what is real and what is true and what the next evolution of your dynamic is wanting to emerge as the two of you contemplate whether or not you're going to make it to the next level. So opportunity mindset versus crisis mindset. So during a relationship breakpoint, the finite thinker asks, how can I save this? How can I stop the relationship from breaking up? Where the infinite thinker asks, how can I use what's happening as a gateway to create even more love, more power, and more presence in my life? The finite thinker asks, how can I control what's happening so I stop feeling out of control? And the infinite thinker asks, who am I wanting to become as a result of facing this head on with my partner? Another question the finite thinker asks in relationship is, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? So they start to feel victimized by the circumstance. Where the infinite thinker asks, what is the curriculum that I am being given right now? And what qualities am I being asked to cultivate? Is it that I need to open my heart? Is there a way in which I need to create and draw more patience into the relationship? Is there a way that I need to start drawing better boundaries? Is it time for me to start speaking up the things that I need in a way that I haven't for the majority of my life? So we can see the opportunity mindset in this versus the crisis mindset that often leads to a victim mentality. And the second pillar that distinguishes the difference between the finite mindset and the infinite mindset in terms of a relationship breakpoint and how they approach this time is how they fight. So the finite lens fights to be right. They fight for their own ego and they're fighting against something. Where the infinite lens fights for something. It fights for an ideal in the relationship. It fights for something that is larger than the two individuals, and it fights ferociously for those things. The infinite player fights to keep the game going versus the finite player who fights to win. To be in the infinite mindset, it requires you to have a vision for your relationship. It requires you to see something that the two of you are creating that is bigger than your own individual needs, right? So what is that for you? Do you have a vision in your relationship? And this vision doesn't have to be complicated. It could be something like your family and creating a family, creating a loving family that is built on unconditional love. It could be that it is a growth path for your own spiritual evolution, and fighting for that. It could be that you are both fighting to make a positive impact on the world. Maybe you're in business together, or maybe there's a way that you are collaborating to create something that will impact others. Or it could be something like completing the dysfunctional patterns that were upstream in your family line, where the two of you are fighting to no longer take those dysfunctional patterns that you learned from your parents into this relationship, and make sure that if you are having children, that all that dysfunction stops with you. So this vision is what you end up fighting for. And this is what keeps you in the infinite mindset, because you're setting your sights on something that is on the horizon, something that can rally and enroll both of you to be on the same team, fighting together towards something. And because of this, the infinite mindset allows them to pick and choose their battles with their partner. They can show up more flexible because they are in service of a larger vision. They can be less defensive, less reactive, and more responsive to the situation at hand, and more intentional with how they handle these conflicts. The finite mindset, on the other hand, has to win, and they are reactive in their fighting, unable to give up ground because there's no larger vision that they're serving aside from their own ego. So the finite player asks the question, what's best for me in a fight? Where the infinite player asks, what's best for us? And here's another point I want to make about the way they orient towards fights. The finite player is fighting for stability in the relationship, where the infinite player is fighting towards anti-fragility. So the finite player is trying to make the relationship more stable, and the infinite player is thinking about how they can make the relationship far more resilient and robust, and in fact actually become stronger through the conflict. See, stability is good in one regard, but the shadow is that new ideas that come into the relationship threaten the stability. New truths, new needs, new ways that people change in a relationship threaten the stability, and the finite player does not have the capacity to really be with that kind of evolution. The infinite player welcomes that. They welcome their partner growing. They welcome the evolution of themselves and their partner, so that the relationship continues to change and grow in deeper and deeper levels of connection and intimacy. And finally, to wrap this point, the finite player is in a fight and in their relationship constantly calculating and asking the question, who has the power? Do I have the power right now, or do they have the power? And if I don't have the power, how do I get the power back? The infinite player is not even concerned with power. The infinite player is asking the question, where can I love right now that I'm holding back? Where are there places that I can actually step in and open my heart more expansively in this current predicament? And now we're going to move to our third point, which is how the finite and the infinite are in relationship with the idea of love. The finite player sees love as a zero-sum game. There is a finite amount of love and happiness that can go around the relationship. So in some ways, they're in this kind of scarcity mindset, where the infinite player is relating to love as it's expansive and infinite, meaning that they understand that love, kindness, all enrich and foster a culture of generosity and abundance in the relationship. And they believe that there's an abundant opportunity for growth and generosity and security. See, the finite player is stuck in this realm of keeping score in the relationship. Tit for tat. I've done this for you, and now I expect to get something in return. They have a score sheet, a balance sheet, where they can see how much perhaps they've given in the relationship and how much the other person hasn't. And what that does is that mindset creates a hotbed for resentment and a contraction in that person's heart, where they start to hold back, become bitter, or become resigned in the relationship. The infinite player sees their relationship as a platform for them to be on stage and find a greater level of love and self-expression and openness, and they get to be somebody that they otherwise would not be able to be when they're single. And so from that place, they are giving, and as they give, they automatically receive. The infinite mindset asks, what is it that I can give to this relationship? The finite player asks, what is it that I can get from the relationship? Now, granted, we want our relationships to be reciprocal. But when we have an over focus on whether or not we're getting ours when we give, we create toxicity in the relationship that ultimately creates a winner and a loser and creates this zero-sum dynamic. So the best way to actually create what it is that you want is to be able to give from an unattached place, to be in service to the relationship versus looking to withdraw credits from the relationship. That's the finite mindset. The infinite is seeing it as a platform. And here's just a final idea on this to support this point of zero-sum love versus expansive love. The finite player relates to their partner and relationship as if it's a checklist. It's something that they've accomplished. It's something that they've done. They've reached the destination. And so they end up losing curiosity for their partner. They stop flirting. They stop being interested in the inner workings of who's in front of them. The infinite player in this expansive love paradigm realizes that they don't really know their partner inside and out, and that there's a space for them to continue to flirt, to continue to ask questions, to continue to be curious, because the point is to keep the game going versus to finish it. And so these are the two paradigms, the infinite versus the finite. And by now, I imagine that you can see the difference in the way that these two can show up in relationship and the impact that each one will have at a breaking point in a relationship. And not only that, but how these mindsets actually can apply to your life, how they can apply to the marathon of relationship, whether you're in a crisis point or not, and to continue to invite yourself into the infinite mindset in relating to life and relating to the people that you love. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below letting me know what is it that you're taking from this video that you found useful, that you can apply immediately in the way that you approach your current circumstance in your relationship or your life. If you would like one-on-one support, making a powerful transition from a finite way of being with relationship and with love to an infinite way of being with these challenges and circumstances, regardless of whether you're in a relationship crisis, this is the work that I've been doing with people for the last 11 years, and I'd love to have a conversation with you and talk about how that works and the structure that I have created for making that happen. There is a link to schedule a call with me in the description below, and we can find out whether it's a fit. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.